Thank you for watching this Fringe Academy recording. You can view all videos and resources from past Fringe Academies on the Fringe Academy resources page of our website. You can also book free tickets for any upcoming Fringe Academies by going to the What's On section. Enjoy!
Welcome everyone to the National Rural Touring Forum's Brighton Fringe Academy. I'm joined here by some very special guests who are immersed and running rural touring events and organisations across the UK. I'm going to show you our lovely video in a minute, but before I do, I just want to tell you more about the NRTF, which has been running for over 25 years and supporting rural touring for a long time. It's a national portfolio organisation of the Arts Council England, and we network and support over 500 members across the UK, and they range from rural touring schemes, which are the arts development agencies and programming hubs of rural tours. Schemes are organisations that generally don't live in venues but operate in their surrounding villages, in rural towns, and obviously in the heart of their communities. We also have promoters, who are the people and groups who host events and artists. These can be anywhere from libraries, pubs, outdoor spaces, community centres, but we are probably best known for rural touring in village hall spaces. And also importantly, we have our artists, producing houses, arts organisations, festivals and creative groups as our members. The NRTF develops and supports this ecosystem that delivers the high quality creative experiences, which again is in the heart of those communities across rural areas in the UK. We see that there are many barriers to those living in the countryside to access live arts and culture, and these include financial, time, distance and social, as in not feeling that larger venues and cultural institutions could be for them. But rural touring is about levelling out this opportunity and access to these top quality creative experiences and shows to those living in rural areas. It's really vibrant, exciting and immersive rural touring for everybody involved. And to follow on from that, I'm just going to share with you our video, if I can find it. One, bear with, never quite that simple.
Imagine a map of the country. Imagine the A roads that become B roads that lead to a village on a crossroads, and there, at the apex of the crossroads, at the heart of the village, is the village hall. Just look at these posters. Rural Touring is a series of schemes supported by the National Rural Touring Forum that takes high quality art and performance to places that are often seen as being far from the centre of things. Although, as we know, these villages are the centre of so many things. Rural touring opens its doors to all kinds of performance for all ages. In these small venues, each one unique, each one kept in tip-top condition by committees and volunteers, you'll see theatre, music, comedy, dance, and the kind of shows you'd have to travel miles to see. Unless you're here, of course, like rural touring is. There are rural touring schemes from horizon to horizon across the land. Think of them as a festival that never ends. An off West End extravaganza. A reminder that the local experience is simply a different way in to the universal experience. There are thousands of village halls, and I'd like them all to be part of the scheme. And there are hundreds of performing groups, and I'd like them all to be part of the scheme. If you want to join this unique circuit, contact the National Rural Touring Forum. It can be a marriage made in a series of magical spaces, each one unique, each one unforgettable.
These events are unmissable and they're good value for money.
Here you've got community really gathered together in their village hall.
The atmosphere is always great. People are always really up for it.
For us, it keeps the work alive. Like, so every space we go to, we're working with new people.
I don't know if you can see, but it's beautiful here.
Are you coming tonight?
National Rural Touring Forum. www.ruraltouring.org. Welcome to Rural Touring.
Hooray! Thank you for listening. Let me just try and stop that from playing something else after, which often it does. Thank you for watching that. And I'm not sure if I introduced myself. So my name's Holly and I'm the director of the NRTF, and I'm joined here by two colleagues, Steffi, who is our communications manager. Give us a wave, Steffi, and also Jess Huffman, who's our project manager. And those are my two colleagues at the forum. So we're going to start with our first guest, who is from a rural touring scheme, and I'd like to introduce to you Kate from Highlights. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Holly. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I have practice, so that probably means it won't now work, but I'll give it a go and see. Can I get a thumbs up if that has worked? Yay, excellent. So hello everyone, I'm Kate Lynch and I'm the Director of Highlights Rural Touring Scheme, and we work across the east and south of Cumbria, County Durham and Northumberland. So we're very much in the north of England. And that's a lovely picture of what we do. So we work with around 60 to 65 village halls and community spaces across the three counties. Each venue is represented by a team of volunteer promoters, and I'm really pleased Holly went through the glossary of rural touring schemes first, because it can be quite different to what you might normally hear in other areas of the industry. All of these promoters are slightly different. Some of them are doing it because they've got a real passion for the arts. Some of them have got some experience of the arts, but others are just really enthusiastic individuals who want to do something and see things in their village hall spaces. At Highlights, we curate 2 seasons of shows each year in a normal time. So we have spring and autumn. Each of them has approximately 80 performances, so 80 performances per season, and usually from around 20 to 25 different artists or companies. We don't programme into the venues, we curate a menu of opportunities, and then the promoters from the village halls choose the shows that they want to programme and which they think their audiences will respond to. We present a really full range of different work, so you'll see theatre, music, dance, storytelling, comedy, family work, everything. Everything's kind of available if we can get it. And just because it's rural touring doesn't mean it has to be rural stories. Our audiences are interested in the same sorts of things that audiences in the cities are as well. So it's a really broad range. We're also offering creative engagement work alongside our main performance programme. So we work with schools and community groups to programme workshops and participatory work with them. And we work with a range of different artists, so regional, national and international. And we often work in partnership with other rural touring schemes from across the country, usually ones that are relatively local, but sometimes it means that we can coordinate a bigger tour for a company across various different schemes networks. So here's just a selection of some of our venues. They're all very different. Some of them are very tiny and we'll see in normal times maybe only 40. Others are much bigger, multi-purpose buildings, and may seat up to 150. So last night I was at Amble at the Parish Hall, which is the photo on the top right, enjoying a show which had about 45 people sat socially distanced. But I'd also popped into another hall which had another show on last night, which is in Hepscott, further south in Northumberland, and they only had 13 people in the audience due to social distancing, and they were full. So at the moment, it looks even stranger than it did before. some of them are beautiful converted churches and schoolhouses, others are very much purpose-built modern buildings. And the venue on the bottom right there is the venue that I promote from in Kirkby Stephen in rural Cumbria. And it's an upstairs function room and a sports and social club, complete with dartboard, formica tables and a frequently sticky dance floor. So yeah, some of them are more glamorous than others. As I said before, the shows we do are vastly different. So on here, just some shows that we've got coming up and that we showed just pre-pandemic. So we've got some immersive family work there from Herd Theatre. There's a couple of circus performers, Carve Ranamar. Got Nikki and JD, Townsend Productions, who are really, really popular on the Rural Touring Network. Yeah, so there's lots of different things happening all the time. And that's just a little bit of that. So what to expect from the artists? So I was trying to think what you might expect as an artist when you turn up at a hall or you come to us and we agree some dates with you. So firstly, and I think it came across in the video as well, you'll see some really beautiful places and stunning landscapes. We're really lucky in Highlights. We work from Arnside, which is on the west coast, right across to Berwick and Amble on the east coast of Northumberland. So, and all the fells and mountains and hillsides in between. So we've got some really stunning places that you can visit. You'll also experience a really hearty welcome by the volunteers. Everyone's doing it because they're passionate about providing arts and culture in their local area. In terms of the venues themselves, they're all very different. Some of them are really, tip-top AV equipment and really on it with sound and lighting. Others don't have any of that, or if they do, it's pretty old, and the person who originally knew how to work it has left, and no one can do that now. So we ask that all of our companies are technically self-sufficient. We do have some equipment centrally in the office, so if you're really stuck, we can let you borrow it for your run of dates. But expect that you will turn up into a venue which doesn't have anything. Expect that you need to take everything with you. You'll probably get some really lovely hospitality. So most of our promoters provide snacks and homemade meals. So just have a conversation with you before about what you might want. And pre-pandemic, often they would also provide homestay. And these provided some really lovely evenings and a kind of addition to the show as artists and the promoters got to know each other. At the moment, that's not something we're asking artists to ask for obvious reasons, but I hope that's something that in the future we can go back to. I think one of the key things about rural touring is it really turns touring on its head. You as the artists and companies are being welcomed into a community space. You're in their space rather than the other way around. I find at my shows that my audiences don't leave at the end. They don't applaud and line out. They wait and they chat to the audiences. They want to know about your experiences, and they really appreciate and value the fact that you've come to their communities with your work. So working with our scheme, as we've moved through the pandemic, it's been really clear that our focus has to be our artists and companies that we work with and our promoters in our rural communities. We like meeting you. We like seeing examples of your work live or online. If you've got shows elsewhere, let us know. We can sometimes manage to come and see them, and we can also talk to our colleagues in other rural networks if they've had your shows on to find out a little bit more. We have a standard company information that we ask you to complete, which gives us all the information we need to know about you coming onto the scheme. We usually pencil a run of 3 to 4 dates across 3 to 4 venues in the season. So they'll be in different places, but you will have a run of consecutive dates. But the venue confirmation happens much later. So we will pencil dates with you, but we won't tell you where they're going to be until a little bit later. We try and make that as sensible as possible in terms of geography across the area. to make it a little bit easier for you. And the one thing I haven't put on the slides is we set a fee per performance in advance. So the way Highlights works is we never work on any split basis. You know exactly how much you're going to be paid in advance of signing the contract. And the last thing I've said is talk to us. You can find all of our contact details at highlightsnorth.co.uk, and we'd love to hear from you. That's me, Holly.
Thank you, Kate. That's such a brilliant insight to how you work. And if anyone has any questions for Kate, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. Or you can start putting your questions in now. If something comes into your head and you want to get it down, start asking those questions now. I feel like that was a really good overview of how generally the schemes work. And there's 30 schemes across the UK. And now we're going to hear from Pete Gregory, who is from Night Out in Wales, also a scheme.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Holly. I'm going to try and share a screen as well, see if I can show you some pretty images so you don't have to look at my mug. Now when the button is in front of the, I can't turn the slideshow on. Do apologise. Here we go. I've got it. I've moved it. Right.
You got it.
Slideshow from current slide.
Never as easy as you think.
No. So yeah, everything that Kate said pretty much applies to Night Out beyond a few bits and pieces. I'm going to try and talk you through the scheme and give you a bit of a sort of history and how we work, and yeah, a little sort of whistle-top tour. So the difference with Night Out is we're based in Wales. We're part of the Arts Council of Wales, so we're actually internal within the Arts Council, but we are a separate website and a separate sort of team of 3 people. And instead of covering a county, we cover the whole of Wales, which as a big country is a huge range of different types of places that use the scheme. So set up in 1980, apart from the last year, there's been, you know, shows every single year. The last year when things worked full time, there was 530 shows put on through the scheme by about 320 different groups. It's a year-round program, so we don't have a set program like Highlights do of the autumn and the summer. Promoters can book at any time of the year. However, we do have busy periods. So in August, there may be 10, 15 events because lots of people are away, and October, November, you could be getting 100, 140 events in a month or something. So there's a real variety. In terms of the, we're also not just rural. So we cover the whole of Wales, but that might be the industrial South Wales valleys where you've got lots of communities, you know, up in the valleys, but quite large populations. But you've also got huge issues of deprivation and poverty within there. You've got rural communities, but you've also got, for example, in Cardiff, we've got the India Centre that uses, or the Samaj Centre. So culturally, those communities are coming to us and using the scheme as well. So a real mix of different things. Village halls and community centres are the staple, but we've also got specific groups like an art society, a jazz society, classical music. So they've got very specific interests. Churches, chapels, and about 24% of what we put on is Welsh language as well. So that's Welsh speaking communities looking for Welsh language shows and performers. So there is no one thing that is Night Out, which is wonderful because it's a whole country, and frustrating at the same time when you're trying to do, you know, one set area and thing. But it represents the whole of Wales, I suppose. We work as a guarantee against loss. So what happens is a promoter will come to us and would like to book a company. If we accept the application, we will take on the payment of the performer fee. So you would invoice us as the performer. It's a pre-agreed fee. Again, we're not doing splits and guarantees against loss. We pre-agree that fee, but you liaise directly with the performer once we've confirmed it. When they apply to us, we can normally let them know within a couple of weeks of the application if it can go ahead. But the actual liaising in terms of technical get-in, all that side of things is between you and the promoter. And likewise, you can register with us on our website. We don't have a set menu, but the website's there, and you can add a show. When you add the show, you can put in things like it's generally available, or you may be doing a specific tour and the dates it is available. And you can put in also some of the technical information. The important thing, though, is have the conversation with promoters when they talk to you about what's needed and what's required, to double check and make sure, that you do fit, how much room you need, how long your get-in is. If you've got a get-in and actually it's all day, that can have a big impact on a promoter in a village hall if they've got to cancel the crash in the morning or the other activities. So just being clear up front on what you require is, one of the most important things, I'd say, once you're having the conversation with the promoters. In terms of when I say it's not a fixed menu, we do organise certain tours with companies. My colleague Hilary, who sort of does a lot of development work, is often, for example, looking for family shows and working in some of the sort of more deprived communities and a certain type of thing. But alongside that, quite a few of our promoters, they know their jazz, they know their world music, they can come to us and use us, and actually they're far more knowledgeable in the type of act and what they want, and we can still facilitate that and make it happen as long as the artist is, will invoice us and prepared, it's not a cash, so they've got to come through the scheme. So an artist doesn't have to be registered with Night Out to get a booking. However, please let us know if you have got suitable product, because we can get your information onto the website, and it's there for shows. I'd also say that you need to be proactive. There's plenty of people who have registered and put a show on their website and done nothing else. Actually, if you want to organise a tour, it's about, building up and establishing those relationships and sort of talking to promoters and that side of things. Some of our most successful stuff that we've done is, it's about finding shows that speak to people, that actually kind of have a universal story. So I was trying to think back at some of the, in the recent years. One show that's toured 3 times with us was Afafia Campbell, who did the show about Nina Simone. I don't know whether anyone's seen it. It was a really lovely one-woman drama. But the other thing that she did that really appealed to our promoters she had a second half which she could book, which was doing all the songs of Nina Simone in a cabaret setting. So in a sense, you had a first half of a 50-minute hard-hitting drama, and then something in the second half that offered a different perspective. That was really popular with promoters, but I think it was also about they knew what they were getting because there was a connection there. The Carly Theatre show that Carly Theatre did a few years back, again, that was a really interesting show that the Rural Touring Forum did. But what was great about it was Carly Theatre had worked with a couple of different communities. So they'd worked with an inner city community in the Midlands who had gone out to with a rural scheme. And then from that, they devised a show which was about a mixed wedding. So I think it was an Asian daughter, could get it the wrong way around, and a farmer's son, or the other way around. So you had the characters, and the show was about come to the wedding. And then we as the audience were sat at tables as if you were at a wedding, watching all the drama unfurl. And it was a good fun farce, and it was everything. But what was lovely was we toured that show, and we toured it to a couple of Asian community centres in Cardiff with 200 or 300 Asian families packed in there. And the same show worked just as well in the middle of rural Powys to 99% white, because it spoke to both communities, because actually it was about the connection, and both communities went, yeah, we could book that, we get it. Sometimes it's finding the hooks and finding the things about a show that actually kind of makes a community go, well, why would we want to book this? if you're putting on a show as a local community promoter, they're 99% volunteers. It's important that what you book people like. These are your neighbours. So I think sometimes we get a lot of companies who they've got an important issue and it's so passionate to them, but it's about sometimes forgetting about the story and how you sell the story and the universal thing, as opposed to, well, this is about, I don't know, dementia or domestic violence or something. And it's like, oh, great, that sounds like a really cheery night out. Why? So to me, I would say, think about what would make someone book your show and want to see it. If you're a village hall promoter and you put 2 or 3 things on a year, why would they choose your show is kind of the biggest tip. And I don't say we always get this right. There's plenty of things that I think, oh, that would be great, and communities don't want. And sometimes something will fly off the shelves and you go, oh, well. So there's no set formula for that. But to me, that's kind of, the biggest thing. Again, I think what Kate said about halls, some of them have lots of equipment and are fairly well contained, but others have very little. And actually, if you are touring and you can get a couple of lights on a stand and make sure you're self-sufficient, you're far better placed in terms of, you can turn the strip lights out in a hall and create a bit of atmosphere, but also, it all works. You're not reliant on, John to do the tech, and actually John's lambing at the moment, so he's not available or whatever it is. So yeah, please, if you can be self-sufficient, and if you aren't, you need to be really upfront with promoters to say, well, I do require this. Have you got that? I think that's probably about me done. If you are, if you have got interesting stuff, like I say, you can get in touch with us, let us know. Exactly the same thing as Kate. We're interested in finding the things that kind of cross over, but also the more you can give us and the more we can pass on to promoters in terms of letting them know what you're offering is the most important thing. But we can give you a password that lets you register on our website, and we do it that way so that there's your information. Once you're registered, you can also actually get contact details and email promoters and that side of stuff.
Thank you, Pete. That is a really good insight into how your scheme works, and it's probably one of the more wider reaching, as it is the entire of Wales, which is an amazing touring circuit to get onto. Thank you for that. Next, we're going to hear from another scheme, Melanie Purdy of Dumfries and Galloway Arts Festival, but they obviously run a festival alongside their scheme work as well. So Melanie, can you tell us more about what you do, please?
Sure, I'm just going to share screen again, so bear with me. Is that showing as presenter view?
No, not yet. Yes, it is now.
Let me just change that. Here we go. Great, so I'm Melanie. I'm the newly appointed Strategic and Creative Director of Dumfries and Galloway Arts Festival. So, sorry, can you see that, or can you still see presentation view? Okay, great. I was doing something funny on my screens. So as a newly appointed director, I'm still sort of getting my feet under the table a little bit because we do so much in terms of the 3 strands we deliver. But I'm just going to give you a bit of a taster of everything that we do. And if there's anything I can't follow up on or anything you do want to follow up, I'll give you contact information for myself and the team after. So first off, I just wanted to show just how big an area that Dumfries and Galloway is. So actually, you can see on the picture on the left, sort of where we are proportionally in terms of the entire sort of region. And also on the right, you can see how big our region is. Now, we take up about 9% of the landmass of Scotland, and it takes 4 hours to travel from one side to the other, which means that actually we have about over 150 venues. And sometimes if we're booking anything, it can actually mean that you're probably, even though it's sort of we're in one region, you could be traveling an hour or 2 hours from one area to another. So it is such a vast area, which comes with its own caveats, but also means that it's a brilliant place to be able to tour because we can book 2 or 3 shows at a time and mean that you're not crossing over in terms of audiences, etc. Another bonus is we're obviously on the border. So we have great connections with other rural touring agencies in Scotland. So you can always start or end a tour either going through us or by us on the sort of way back to England. So this is our new website, which we've just launched. It still needs a little bit of work, but these are the 3 strands in which we work for. So we are Dumfries and Galloway Arts Festival, and we were founded 42 years ago. And we were originally the festival, which is a 10-day festival in May usually, which I'll go into detail about in a minute. But we also have our other strands, which is Stage It and Arts Live. So you can find out more information about all of these through our website, where our link is there below. So Dumfries and Galloway Arts Festival, that obviously founded 42 years ago. Essentially, it was made to be sort of emulate the Edinburgh International Festival and the Fringe Festival, but to bring that sort of ethos to Dumfries and Galloway. And it is Scotland's largest rural performing arts festival. Usually what we programme is comedy, dance, theatre and circus, music, but it's mainly folk and classical, as well as spoken word and poetry and theatre. So we really have a focus on performing arts. Usually what we would do for that festival is we would programme sort of large pieces or larger pieces that would be able to go through our venues, mainly in Dumfries, but we also try and get to all 4 areas of our region. And that would be in similar sort of rural touring places, village halls, theatres, centres, etc. Obviously, due to COVID, we've really had to think about the way in which we present work, particularly because a lot of our centres and village halls are either shut down or are starting to build things up again, other than the regular theatres we tour to. There's probably a capacity of up to about 50 people max, some of them 100 at a push. So you can imagine the capacities are way down. So doing social distancing is pretty hard at the moment, but obviously things are starting to get better and our restrictions are easing. It's meant that for this year's festival, where we usually run it in May, we've moved it to July so that we can actually programme a much wider scale programme. And we've moved all of our work from being in venues, which is what we typically do, to be outdoors or online. So this year's festival's theme, which you'll see, is Haimel Day Me, which is a Scottish term translated to Haim will do me. And colloquially, we use it as a way of saying, you know, I don't need to go away on holiday, or I don't need to go away because home will do me. Everything I've got is right here. So for the first time, we've done a real focus on the local work. We've brought in national companies to present stuff through our national programme, and we are really doing a push on work for young people. So you can actually come along to any of the online stuff. It's all pay what you can, so we can start to look at different models for online programming, and that's between the 16th and the 25th of July this year. And you'll find more information on that on our website. The way we programme for this festival is it's not formal. We're not a regularly funded organisation. So we, so that's NPO in Arts Council for England. So we actually sort of have to apply for funding every year, but I'm always open to having a conversation about what event that you might feel fits with our festival, just by getting in touch with me. Now, Arts Live is our rural touring programme, and that's actually only founded just a few years ago, so we're still building that up, but it is a really strong programme of, like I've said, 150 venues across the region, and really it's part of that. The main thing is that obviously we were originally the festival, and so actually people said that we kind of have this fleeting moment with the festival only lasting in May. But our Arts Live programme lasts from the 1st of August to, you know, the end of July, which means that we can programme work that sort of is similar to the festival, which is much more smaller scale to fit with our venues that can go across the entire year. Every single year it varies in terms of scale, size, etc. But we usually programme autumn and winter, which is between August and February. And then we do a second programme spring to summer, which is between March and July. And we look for the similar things that we do in terms of the festival. It's quite similar in the sense of if you want to book an event with us, you get in touch with us and just be transparent in terms of what sort of fees you have. What we like to do is secure a financial deal, which includes travel and accommodation, and we'll leave you to book the accommodation, even though we'll provide some support in finding that, whether it's with local people or in sort of B&Bs, etc. we have deals with. And we will also support with the production side of that. The main focus for us is really to try and ensure that the venues that we have as part of it, we have a sort of cohort which are regularly touring theatre places, but we also have venues which, similar to Night Out, you know, they really sort of, in terms of presenting that production, they actually need the support for in terms of marketing. We'll sort of do a guarantee against loss deals. So you know you'll get your fee, but actually in terms of the box office, that's a risk that we and the venues take in terms of getting that audience in. So we do something similar to Highlights North. We try and guarantee at least 3 or 4 tour dates across the region. And if you're looking to do other touring across Scotland, we'll connect you with other sort of rural touring networks. The final strand that we do is Stage It, and that is a sort of semi-new programme. That was actually founded through the Scottish Event Scotland's Year of Young People a few years ago, and it's been a widely successful programme where we started the YPG, which is a young promoters group. That group almost act like a board made up of 10 to 15 young people who each year support us with programming by deciding what they want brought to the region, along with, we provide them with training opportunities and engagement opportunities with the way in which we programme. So just to finalise, I think really sort of what, this is obviously me, feel free to get in touch with me in terms of programming, etc. And really sort of what I'm looking for over this next year as we're starting to programme for next year's festival and this next Arts Live is work that directly engages with our audiences. And that's really looking for, Q&As, masterclasses, workshops, curtain raisers, etc. Because a really big push that we want to do is looking at our audience engagement and getting people back out and engaging with the arts again, particularly to build back their confidence and well-being. And that's why we're doing a really big push at the moment on outdoor work and also online. And really, this festival will kind of be a test bed for us to see how popular that is. But I'm really open to collaborations and future discussions in terms of what you want to present. I'm sorry we don't quite have a formal process, but what we will do is be equally just as transparent about where we are in terms of booking. So thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And thank you for sharing the map as well. I did know where you were based, but I hadn't quite realised that it was 4 hours across, which is incredible. And I think that, I don't know how far yours goes, Kate, but it just goes to show that these schemes do cover quite a huge area of touring. So thank you. And also I want to draw your attention to the chat because there's lots of links and things going in there. I know we're on share screen quite a lot, but you can still access the chat while we're on shared screen. So last but by no means least, I'd like to introduce you to Adele Ragg of Spilt Milk Dance, who has done a lot of rural touring. Tell us from an artist's perspective.
Might help if I mute myself, hey? Okay, so hi everyone. I'm not sharing my screen, so you can just look at everyone's faces. I'm going to start off by just outlining the kind of work we make and the experience that we've had in rural touring, and then after that I'll just do like some bullet point top tips, and that's how I thought it was best to structure it. So in terms of the work we make, yeah, I just think it's really important to caveat like everything I say and all of our experience is based on the type of work we make, and we know that there's very different types of work that goes into rural touring really successfully as well. So as Spilt Milk Dance, we make performance work that is like a blend of dance and sketch comedy and storytelling. And our whole aim really is to make dance accessible for people that haven't trained in it and aren't regular contemporary dance viewers. And so we found rural touring as a great home for it, because we find that when we land in a community for the night, a lot of people will come to whatever's on in the village hall. And so in that way, we found in the first instance that we were reaching a lot more potential dance audiences that might not otherwise choose to go to a theatre to see dance. So that's kind of how it started, but then it really snowballed, and our love for rural touring, it really underpins everything that we do when we're making work. So all our work now is specifically for small scale community venues. So that means that we make it with that in mind all the way through. And I'll talk a little bit about that during the top tips, about how we make sure that it's embedded in our process, and therefore the product is totally relevant for it. So we've been doing rural touring for about 7 years now, and we've taken shows into between 150 and 200 community venues, village halls, libraries, churches, across networks across the country. So we've taken shows up to the north coast of Scotland and down to Cornwall and Norfolk and Wales. So we really feel like we've got to know the geography of the country brilliantly through this process. And we've taken, the current show that we're touring is a 2-woman show. So everything fits in one van, the 2 of us plus production manager. And we've also toured a show that was kind of the other end of the scale to that. There was a show where we rocked up and there was about 16 of us landing in the village hall, which is pretty rare, I think. But obviously we would really need to prepare our promoters for receiving that. The way that we got into rural touring, I just thought might be useful as well, is sort of along the same time. On the one hand, we took a show to Edinburgh. And so through that, we invited a lot of rural touring scheme managers to come and watch. And so it got picked up and a bit of interest got happened from there. And we also went to one of these events at that Edinburgh and chatted to some of the rural touring scheme managers. And at the same time, somebody that worked for our more local scheme, so we're based in the Midlands, so Live and Local, who cover a lot of the Midlands, somebody had seen our show and thought, that could work for rural touring, but it needs some tweaks. So then we were in the process of conversations with them as well to get really like bespoke feedback and suggestions about how that show could be made relevant for rural touring. And then they took a chance on a couple of shows so that we could test that out. And so that was how it started. And then from then it snowballed, as I said. And we, are massive advocates for rural touring in loads of ways, as will become really clear, because I'll just keep raving about how brilliant it is. So I think like the number one top tip when you're making a show for this kind of setting is flexibility. So obviously as artists, you have a vision for your work, and that's really important. And but also there's always things that you hold really dear and that you think are very important and are non-compromise things for your show, but then also think about the things that can be flexible. And there's just things for this kind of setting that you're going to make your life way easier if when you're making the show, you are making it flexible. So we make it with the impression that we could only have a very small, tight space, which for dance is pretty unusual, but know that we can expand it if we need to. Similarly, like with set design, something that can have impact in a smaller space or a bigger space, or are there things that you add in a bigger space to fill it? Staging wise, like for a dance performance, especially, sightlines are crucial, and not all venues will have stages. So we tour with a stage that we know we can do the show on, but also if there's a stage in the venue, we can adapt it to go on there. Or sometimes we do it part on their stage and part on our stage, because we have then found that we reach out to the audience a bit more and we like to be amongst the audience. So just being ready for anything, being ready to think on your feet when you arrive there about how it's going to be staged and what things are you can't compromise on and which things you can compromise on. And yeah, being ready to think on your feet. But also the beauty of that is that the show is never the same twice for you as performers. That's a beauty for us. I know for some performers that might be a nightmare, but for us, we love that it's never the same show twice. It keeps you on your feet. It keeps the show fresh, which also, if you're doing this type of touring, which has potential to have a lot more dates than a traditional theatre tour, then that it's great that the show is kept fresh for you. You don't become stale if you're doing 50 dates or something. So with the venues, I just always think it's really important to point out that although there's challenges and restrictions in these venues, there's actually loads of possibilities in there because you've not got fixed seats. So you can decide exactly how the audience are laid out in each space, rather than if you were doing a theatre tour and everyone's end on all the time. So it's just worth bringing that into your process, like what different ways could you arrange the audience? What possibilities could that be offering you? These are kind of not in any specific order. I just scribbled down lots of thoughts. So then going on to like the technical aspects, as people have mentioned, it's really beneficial to be technically self-sufficient, which we are, but when we started and we heard that completely overwhelmed us. We were like, we haven't got any money to buy all the tech stuff. How the hell is this going to work? So what we did was just asked around. This might be really obvious, but also if you've sat and heard that and thought, well, I haven't got loads of lights, how am I going to make this happen? So we borrowed, there was like a couple of places that lent us stages when we needed them, a university that we had links with, or a studio theatre. They usually have some alley deck or something lying around, like as spares that's not being used all the time. Same with lights, and then, you know, lights end up being on a long-term loan because they're actually old lights of a uni and then eventually you acquire it. And we did just gradually put equipment into our Arts Council bids as well, so that over time you build up your resources, or there might be another company nearby that's got something that you can loan, but just ask. People will have it there, I'm sure. So the other thing that we found really helps is to have a team around you that is passionate about this type of touring. So like I said, we've got a production manager. We've worked with him now for 5 years, and he loves this type of touring, absolutely. And it makes the world of difference, because it's got to be somebody that, you know, might love going rurally, but also they need to be able to be that problem solver for you a lot of the time, because if you're going in and having a performance that day, then you can't shoulder all of the burden of how are we going to make this look great in this space. So trying to find a team around you that is like that just get a kick out of that as well, like get a kick out of making it look great in any space and thinking on their feet, and also of being really personable, because if you are backstage getting changed and you need to do that and take your time to get ready to perform, they're the ones who are out as the community arrive, and as the promoter has got questions about, oh, how exactly is this going to talk? Shall I go up and give a speech at the beginning? Which is what the promoter will ask. You need to have somebody there that is your representative, that you know is going to just... What's great about our production manager is that like nothing is too much trouble and nothing is an issue. So if they ask anything, he's just like, yeah, we can do that. We've done it in this. We've done like, yeah, you just need somebody that is a yes, we can do it, and then they make it work. You get that vibe. Because this will diverge nicely, because what is really important through the whole process is putting the promoter's mind at rest. And that starts from when you are first put in touch with them. So having conversations with them to make sure that they know that the show can definitely work in their space. We've tried it in different spaces. It's going to be great in there. We can make anything happen. You don't need to worry. It's our job to make it look great. That's the message that the promoter needs to have. Equally, you need to provide them with, like you would with a normal venue, we send them a marketing pack and a tech pack, but to be very, very, very clear, they are different to the ones that we would send to a studio theatre. I'm not going to say to a volunteer promoter, oh, I don't know, we need this number of bottles of water, and we need an ironing board, and we need the room to be a certain temperature so that I can warm up properly. Like, that's just going to totally blow their minds. So we just put in nice, simple things to put their minds at rest. So what time we would say ideally how many hours we need to get in, but we can do it in less. If there's a Zumba class on and we've got to get in 2 hours, like, we will make it happen. And yeah, the same with the marketing pack, just making it really clear, having sample letters that they can mail out or sample press releases that they can send out. So then you're doing a lot of the work for them. And knowing that might be a conversation on the phone as well, just to put their minds at rest. So what we like to think about when we're going into the venues as well is how we can transform that space into a theatre for the night. So what we can do to make a space that, yes, is theirs and we're on their turf, but makes them walk in and right from the off go, wow, this looks different. I've never seen it look like this before. And that can be some simple touches, really, in terms of like how you lay out the seating, or our first show we did where everything was a bit smaller scaled and pared back, we strung fairy lights across the whole of the ceiling. Again, inexpensive, but the effort is there, and people did turn up and go, like, it feels a bit more magical. How can you create the awe and wonder of going to the theatre in a brown room that they've seen loads of times? Then I've talked about sight lines. Having a good night out. So our show, often a studio theatre show might be like 60 minutes long. Our shows for rural touring are always 90 minutes long and have an interval, because that allows the committee or whoever runs it to make some extra cash by having an interval and selling some snacks and drinks. So we just make sure that it's always aiming for that 90-minute mark. But that, again, as I think Peter mentioned earlier, can be done in different ways. So like our first show was a performance in the first half, and then it was a social dance in the second half, so splitting the 90 minutes. And I probably will just, considering the audience throughout the process and considering the setting throughout the process, as I've mentioned, is really important. But like an example that I will give is that we've just been redesigning our website, and all the way through that, we're saying, okay, but we can't have this fancy video that plays on the homepage, because what if a rural touring promoter is going on there and they've not got great Wi-Fi? Like, we need to make sure that it shows up if you've got dodgy Wi-Fi or if you're rural, and then also like the path through the website if you're a rural touring promoter, like how is everything called something that's simply identifiable if you're not somebody that is from a venue. So and just taking that all the way through. So we consider the audience through the process of making as well, in terms of we consult them by sharing work in progress in village halls. I'm sure a lot of schemes would be happy to do that. And then finally, just to say, another beauty of rural touring is that the schemes and the people that manage the schemes are obviously really passionate about this type of touring as well. And so to be somebody that's passionate about touring to rural community venues, you're generally really friendly. And so that's a big difference from going to venues where it can feel quite faceless, like a studio theatre, or where you're knocking on a door and not getting much response. I'll leave it there, but feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions.
Thanks so much, Adele. Actually, it was brilliant to hear from your perspective and from an artist, some really key points about what to take and what to expect there. We're nearly out of time. That last half an hour just went like that. And there was me thinking you had ages. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask? Poppy, your hand was straight up there. Go for it.
Hi, I come to this with slightly with two hats on because I'm actually a playwright. I've got a show touring with Micron, who do a lot of rural touring, Micron Theatre Company. But I also want to create work which is kind of more local to me. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't a scheme in my area, which is Bedfordshire, rural Bedfordshire, Milton Keynes, North Bucks. I know there's stuff in Northamptonshire, but I perceive a need in this area that there's a kind of massive lack of engagement, particularly at a rural level, even though we are quite close to London. And I'm just like slightly thinking, it's partly about my own work that I'd love to write stuff which responds to the local area, but also how do I go about trying to build up slowly, I don't know, a scheme if there isn't anything, or, you know, what would you suggest?
So around London, you will find there's about a 60-mile band of lack of rural touring, and that's the London effect, unfortunately, on that area.
Yeah.
There are organisations like Farnham Maltings working in that area.
Yeah.
Explores rural touring as well, who are starting to reach out around those areas. So you can speak to them first, I would say. Let me just check with Cameron. Do we need to end, or are we all right for a couple of minutes?
We are. I mean, we're okay with. There's no. Okay. I mean, we marked it as running for an hour.
We'll go over 5 minutes. If anyone needs to leave, then that is perfectly fine. Any more questions? Polly.
Thank you so much. I just had a question about an ACE application. So I'm a musician, but I'm working on an Arts Council application for a mixed media. It's like literature, music, and circus projects. It's like and it has the potential to tour. It could be too complicated, but I imagine there could be different imaginings of it. So it could be a simple version and a more complex version. But just at the application stage, is it possible to begin dialogue with managers, with rural groups, to be able to put those confirmed or even penciled dates into an arts application?
Steffi.
Hi everyone, I'm Steffi. I'm the communications manager for NRTF, and I also work with Spot on Lancashire, which is Lancashire's rural and library touring network. Yes, please do talk to us very early on. What we like about that is knowing that you've got rural in mind from the beginning. It gives us some confidence that you're then going to take into account the special specifications we need around tech and things like that. But the thing to keep in mind with that is the timeline. Obviously, we can only support a certain number of artists. So if we pencil in dates with you, we need to be fairly confident that that is going to happen. So letting us know whether or not that tour can happen, even if you don't get the funding, or talking to us with enough time for you to put in that application once or twice if you're not successful the first time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how touring works. That's how the Arts Council funding works. We're all victims of that. But obviously, if we put together dates and our promoters get excited and have booked that in, and we have to pull that last minute, it's very difficult for us to rebuild that, fill it in again, find a show that's suitable for that promoter and that community. And it's all about those relationships and trust and that communication. So those timelines for rural touring schemes, some schemes are booking now already 18 months in advance because they're having those conversations with artists about their tours.
Yeah, I'm talking 2023.
Yeah, so it's
a long
really
lead time.
worth speaking to touring schemes as early as possible for a whole range of reasons.
Yeah, and maybe I might send you an email afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, so my email is in the chat. I answer artist questions all day, every day. No, I don't, because I only work 2 days a week for the NRTF. But do please send me them, because I have all the resources that I can send you really quickly and easily on our website. Speaking of which, NRTF membership is currently free for individual artists or non-regularly funded small performing companies. You can sign up on our website. Once you do that, you will get access to all our resources. Some are public, and I've shared those ones in the chat, but some are member only. And you'll also get the Friday bulletin, which comes out every Friday with all the latest news and opportunities from our sector and beyond. This past 18 months, it's been full of COVID advice, and it will tell you when our next artist meeting is, which is a bit like this, but it's more open for conversations. Someone asked for my email. I think it's just been posted again in the chat.
Thanks, Steffi. Any more questions before we go? No. Well, then that leaves me to say thank you very much to Kate, Melanie, Peter and Adele, and everyone who has come, and Steffi and Jess as well. Thank you everyone who's come to this event to hear about, and we look forward to hearing about your tours. And if you're performing at the moment at Brighton, I hope it's going really well, and I wish I could get down because it's just a festival. All right, okay, thank you so much everybody.